He was born into one of the most powerful families in American history. The son of a president. The face of hope. The symbol of American royalty. John F. Kennedy Jr. was more than just a name. He was charisma, intelligence, charm, and compassion, wrapped in the legacy of a nation's most beloved political dynasty. But behind the glossy magazine covers, behind the effortless smile and public appearances, was a man burdened by expectation, driven by purpose, and tragically gone too soon. In this 30-minute video, we'll take a deep dive into the remarkable life of JFK Jr., from his birth in the White House to the fateful flight that ended it all. This is a story of dreams, duty, and destiny. On November 25, 1960, just weeks after his father was elected president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. was born. America fell in love instantly. He was the baby of the White House, the nation's child, crawling around the Oval Office, captured in timeless photographs that symbolized hope for a new generation. But tragedy struck early. On November 22, 1963, when John was just 2 days shy of his 3rd birthday, President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. The image of young John Jr. saluting his father's casket during the funeral became one of the most hauntingly iconic moments in American history. From that day on, the world watched John Jr. grow up in the shadow of a fallen father. Raised by his fiercely private and protective mother, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, John Jr. had a childhood that tried to balance normalcy with fame. He attended private schools and grew up alongside his sister, Caroline. Jackie instilled in him a sense of purpose and groundedness. After the 1984 Democratic National Convention in San Francisco, Kennedy returned to New York to earn $20,000 a year at the Office of Business Development, where his boss said that he worked in the same crummy cubbyhole as everybody else. I heaped on the work and was always pleased. Kennedy continued there as deputy director of the 42nd Street Development Corporation in 1986, conducting negotiations with developers and city agencies. In 1988, Kennedy became a summer associate at Mannett, Phelps, Rothenberg and Phillips, a Los Angeles law firm with strong connections to the Democratic Party, working for his uncle Ted Kennedy's law school roommate and former Democratic National Committee chairman Charles Mannett. Later that year, Kennedy was named by People magazine as 1988's Sexiest Man Alive. From 1989, Kennedy headed Reaching Up, a non-profit group which provided educational and other opportunities for workers who helped people with disabilities. William Ebenstein, executive director of Reaching Up, said, "He was always concerned with the working poor, and his family always had an interest in helping them." Kennedy earned a Juris Doctor degree from the New York University School of Law in 1989. He then failed the New York bar exam twice before passing on his 3rd try in July 1990. After failing the exam for a 2nd time, Kennedy vowed that he would continue to take it until he was 95 years old or past. If Kennedy had failed a 3rd time, he would have been ineligible to serve as an assistant district attorney in the Manhattan DA's office, where Kennedy worked for the next 4 years, handling such matters as consumer fraud and landlord-tenant disputes. On August 29, 1991, Kennedy won his first case as a prosecutor. In the summer of 1992, Kennedy worked as a journalist and was commissioned by the New York Times to write an article about his kayaking expedition to the Åland archipelago, where he saved one of his friends when a kayak capsized. Kennedy then considered creating a magazine with his friend, public relations magnate Michael J. Berman, a plan which his mother thought too risky. In his 2000 book The Day John Died, Christopher Anderson wrote that Jacqueline had worried that her son would die in a plane crash and asked her longtime companion Maurice Templesman to do whatever it took to keep John from becoming a pilot. As he got older, John's charisma became undeniable. He was named Sexiest Man Alive by People magazine in 1988. But he wasn't just a pretty face. He studied at Brown University, earned a law degree from NYU, and explored the stage as an actor before turning to law and media. Many expected him to go into politics, to pick up the mantle his father had left behind. But John wanted to carve his own path. He wanted to be more than a Kennedy. In 1995, John shocked the establishment by launching George Magazine, a glossy political and lifestyle magazine that mixed politics with celebrity culture. Its slogan, Not just politics as usual. He was ridiculed by some and praised by others, but no one could deny that John was taking risks, stepping outside the expected Kennedy mold. George was a bold experiment, and it reflected John's belief that politics should be accessible, modern, and even entertaining. He used the magazine to humanize public figures, challenge the status quo, and spark thoughtful conversation. It was his vision, his voice, and his passion project. In 1996, John married Carolyn Bessette, a Calvin Klein publicist known for her beauty, grace, and enigmatic presence. The wedding was secret, held on Cumberland Island, Georgia, a quiet, sacred union far from the public eye. But their marriage wasn't easy. Carolyn struggled with the intense media scrutiny, and John was often caught between his desire for privacy and his duty to the public. There were tensions, misunderstandings, and growing pains. Despite the challenges, their bond was real. Friends described them as deeply in love, even in the roughest times. They were trying to build a life in a world that wouldn't let them just be a couple. On July 16, 1999, John, Carolyn, and her sister Lauren boarded a small plane en route to a family wedding in Hyannisport. John was the pilot. The night was hazy. Visibility was poor. John, still relatively inexperienced with instrument-only flight, struggled to navigate. Just a few miles from their destination, the plane disappeared off radar. Days later, the wreckage was found in the Atlantic Ocean. All three were gone. John F. Kennedy Jr. was just 38 years old. The nation mourned. Again. It wasn't just the loss of a man, it was the loss of possibility, of what could have been. John had the world's attention, and he was starting to shape it on his terms. John F. Kennedy Jr. lived a life under pressure, but with grace. He wore the weight of history like a tailored suit, never letting it crush his spirit. He was thoughtful, kind, fiercely loyal, and undeniably charismatic. He didn't get the chance to become president, or a great statesman, or an old man telling stories to his grandchildren. But he did get the chance to be himself. And maybe that's the lesson he left behind. Legacy isn't about mimicking the past. It's about daring to create your own. Thank you for watching. If John's story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of the importance of living with intention, please like, subscribe, and share this video. And tell us in the comments, what do you think JFK Jr.'s greatest legacy truly is? Until next time, remember, greatness isn't inherited. It's created, moment by moment, choice by choice.